There is a huge amount of unrecorded human history beneath the ocean surface that we don't know very much about at all. On the deep waters off Cuba's western coast, researchers made a discovery so baffling it made even the most seasoned researchers turn pale. It looked like an ancient city hidden nearly half a mile beneath the sea, and when they looked closer, they turned pale at what they found. The year was 2001, and marine engineers thought they were conducting routine sonar mapping. Instead, they stumbled upon something that would challenge everything we know about human history: geometric shapes, perfectly aligned structures, and formations that defied natural explanation emerged from their sonar readings. This wasn't just another underwater anomaly. This is the actual truth of something that made experienced scientists question their own eyes. The accidental discovery. Polina Zalitsky and Paul Vinisvag never expected their names to become synonymous with one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries of the 21st century. Working for Advanced Digital Communications, a Canadian company specializing in deep-sea exploration, the marine engineers were contracted by the Cuban government in 2001 to map the ocean floor off Cuba's western coast. Their mission seemed straightforward enough: use advanced sonar technology to search for sunken Spanish treasure ships and survey the seabed for potential oil reserves. But the ocean had other plans. As their sophisticated side scan sonar swept across the seafloor, something extraordinary began to appear on their screens. At depths ranging from 600 to 750 meters, nearly half a mile down, geometric patterns started emerging from the darkness. These weren't the random chaotic formations typically found on the ocean floor. Instead, what materialized was a collection of structures that displayed an almost impossible level of organization and symmetry. The initial sonar passes revealed what appeared to be massive stone blocks, some as large as small buildings arranged in deliberate patterns across the seafloor. Zalitsky watched in growing amazement as corridor-like formations came into view, flanked by what looked like walls and intersected by circular plazas. Most striking of all were several pyramid-shaped structures that towered above the surrounding formations, their geometric precision clearly visible even through the grainy sonar imagery. We were seeing things that just shouldn't exist at that depth. Zalitsky would later recall, the excitement in the research vessel was palpable, but it was tinged with an underlying sense of unease. These structures weren't just unusual, they were unprecedented. The arrangement suggested intelligent design, deliberate planning, and sophisticated engineering. Yet, they lay at a depth that should have been impossible for any known ancient civilization to reach. Even during the lowest sea levels of the last ice age, the team conducted multiple passes over the site, each scan confirming what they had already begun to suspect. This wasn't a trick of the sonar or an optical illusion created by natural rock formations. The structures maintained their geometric integrity from every angle, displaying the kind of architectural coherence that only comes from purposeful construction. The feeling among the researchers was unanimous. They had discovered something that would fundamentally challenge our understanding of human history and the timeline of civilization itself. As news of the discovery began to filter through academic circles, the scientific community found itself grappling with an uncomfortable question: if these were indeed man-made structures, who built them and when? The implications were staggering, and the mystery was just beginning to unfold. At Sunken City, when the sonar data was processed and analyzed, the images that emerged painted a picture so extraordinary that even hardened skeptics found themselves struggling for explanations. The structures sprawled across an area of several square kilometers, forming what appeared to be a complex urban layout, complete with streets, plazas, and monumental architecture. The precision was breathtaking. Walls ran in perfectly straight lines, corners met at exact right angles, and the overall design displayed a level of urban planning that rivaled modern cities. Zalitsky's description captured the wonder and bewilderment that gripped the research team. It really looks like a wonderful structure, almost like an urban center. The comparison wasn't hyperbole. The sonar imagery showed clear evidence of what appeared to be a sophisticated settlement, complete with large pyramidal structures that rose majestically from the seafloor. These weren't crude stone piles or random rock formations. They were geometrically perfect structures that displayed the hallmarks of advanced architectural knowledge. The site quickly earned the nickname Mega, a designation that seemed fitting for a discovery of such monumental proportions. Scientists began to whisper about possibilities that seemed too incredible to be true. Could this be evidence of a lost civilization? Some researchers, emboldened by the striking imagery, even dared to ask the question that would dominate discussions for years to come. Could this be Atlantis? The circular plazas visible in the sonar scans bore an uncanny resemblance to descriptions from Plato's famous account of the lost city. The arrangement of structures, the sophisticated urban planning, and the sheer scale of the site all seemed to align with ancient descriptions of advanced civilizations that had vanished beneath the waves. Media outlets around the world began to take notice, and the story of Cuba's underwater city started to capture public imagination on a global scale. But it was in the quiet moments, when researchers studied the images in detail, that the true magnitude of the discovery began to sink in. The blocks visible in the scans were massive, some measuring several meters on each side, arranged with a precision that suggested not just intelligence, but sophisticated engineering capabilities. The excitement was infectious, but it came with a growing sense of unease. If these structures were real, if they were indeed the remnants of an ancient city, then the implications for our understanding of human history were revolutionary. The depth at which they lay suggested an age that predated known civilizations by tens of thousands of years, pushing back the timeline of human achievement to an almost unimaginable antiquity. Awe and doubt. The scientific community's response to the megasite discovery was as complex as it was divided. When Manuel de Vinant, Cuba's leading geologist and a respected member of the Cuban Academy of Sciences, first examined the sonar imagery, his reaction encapsulated the profound challenges the discovery presented. His calculations were sobering. For structures to have sunk to depths of 600 to 750 meters would require approximately 50,000 years based on known rates of geological subsidence and sea level changes. This timeline presented an almost impossible conundrum. 50,000 years ago, modern humans had barely begun their migration out of Africa, and the sophisticated civilizations capable of constructing monumental architecture wouldn't emerge for tens of thousands of years. The implications were staggering. If these structures were indeed man-made, they would predate the Egyptian pyramids by 45,000 years and challenge fundamental assumptions about the development of human civilization. Dr. Michael Thorpe, an underwater archaeologist from the University of West Florida, captured the bewilderment felt by many experts. He described the discovery as out of time and out of place. His assessment highlighted the central paradox that made the megasite so controversial. The structures appeared to advance for their implied age, yet too organized to dismiss as natural formations. The skeptical voices in the scientific community weren't without merit. Dr. Robert Ballard, the renowned oceanographer who discovered the Titanic, offered a cautionary perspective that resonated with many researchers. He compared the sonar imagery to an ink blot test, suggesting that humans have a natural tendency to see patterns and impose order on random data. The human mind, Ballard argued, is remarkably adept at finding familiar shapes in unfamiliar contexts. The scientific method demands rigorous verification, and the megasite presented challenges that tested the very foundations of archaeological methodology. How do you properly investigate structures at crushing depths that requires specialized equipment costing millions of dollars? How do you distinguish between natural rock formations and artificial construction when working with limited sonar data? Yet, even the skeptics couldn't entirely dismiss the geometric precision visible in the imagery. The structures maintained their organizational integrity across multiple sonar passes, displaying a consistency that seemed to argue against random geological processes. The debate that emerged reflected a fundamental tension between the desire for scientific rigor and the tantalizing possibility of a discovery that could rewrite history. Dr. Dinant himself embodied this duality. While acknowledging the extraordinary implications of the discovery, he maintained a cautious approach. emphasizing the need for direct investigation and physical evidence. "We need to study this scientifically," he stated, "not jump to conclusions based on sonar imagery alone." His measured response reflected the broader scientific community's struggle to balance excitement with skepticism in the face of unprecedented claims. When they turned pale, the moment that would define the mega-site discovery came not in the initial excitement of finding unusual formations, but in the quiet analysis that followed, as researchers pored over the processed sonar data. When the high-resolution sonar images were enhanced and analyzed frame by frame, the details that emerged made even the most experienced researchers pause in disbelief. The blocks visible in the formations weren't irregular stones shaped by natural forces. They were geometric structures with clean edges and precise angles. Some of these massive blocks were as large as houses, arranged in patterns that suggested not just intelligence, but advanced planning and engineering capabilities that rivaled modern construction techniques. The corridors visible in the sonar scans ran in perfectly straight lines for hundreds of meters, maintaining consistent widths and displaying the kind of precision that required sophisticated surveying tools. The circular plazas were geometrically perfect, their symmetry so exact that it seemed impossible they could have formed through natural processes. Most unsettling of all were the pyramid structures. Their sides rose at angles that matched known architectural principles, their bases perfectly aligned with the overall urban grid. It was in these moments of careful analysis that researchers truly understood why their colleagues had turned pale upon seeing the evidence. The discovery wasn't just challenging academic theories, it was potentially demolishing them. If these structures were indeed artificial, they represented evidence of a civilization with capabilities that shouldn't have existed for another 40,000 years. The implications were so profound that they seemed to venture into the realm of science fiction rather than archaeology. Dr. Zelicki later described the feeling that gripped the research team during these revelations. "If this is real, it rewrites history as we know it." The weight of that statement hung heavy in the research facility. Here was a discovery that could fundamentally alter our understanding of human development, technological progress, and the timeline of civilization itself. The evidence was compelling, the imagery was clear, and yet the implications were so extraordinary that they challenged the very foundations of established science. This was the moment when researchers discovered what looked like a lost underwater city near Cuba and truly turned pale, not from fear, but from the staggering realization of what they might have found. The geometric precision, the architectural sophistication, and the sheer scale of the structures suggested capabilities that predated known civilizations by tens of thousands of years. The discovery forced an uncomfortable question. What if our understanding of human history was fundamentally incomplete? The processed images became the subject of intense scrutiny, with experts from around the world examining every pixel for clues about the true nature of the structures. But with each analysis, the mystery only deepened and the implications became more profound. This was the moment when researchers discovered what looked like a lost underwater city near Cuba and truly turned pale, not from fear, but from the staggering realization of what they might have found. The geometric precision, the architectural sophistication, and the sheer scale of the structures suggested capabilities that predated known civilizations by tens of thousands of years. The discovery forced an uncomfortable question. What if our understanding of human history was fundamentally incomplete? The processed images became the subject of intense scrutiny, with experts from around the world examining every pixel for clues about the true nature of the structures. But with each analysis, the mystery only deepened and the implications became more profound. The Atlantis question. In the annals of human mythology, few legends have captured the imagination as powerfully as Plato's account of Atlantis, the advanced civilization that supposedly vanished beneath the ocean waves in a single day and night of catastrophic destruction. When images of the megite began circulating through academic and media circles, the inevitable comparisons to this ancient tale emerged with startling frequency. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Plato had described Atlantis as an island civilization of extraordinary sophistication featuring circular harbors, advanced architecture, and engineering capabilities that surpass those of contemporary civilizations. The megasite, with its circular plazas, geometric precision, and apparent urban planning, seemed to echo these ancient descriptions with uncanny accuracy. The location itself added weight to the comparison. Situated in the Atlantic basin, the structures lay precisely where some theories had placed the legendary lost continent. Archaeological enthusiasts and alternative historians seized upon these similarities with obvious excitement. Here, they argued, was potential physical evidence of humanity's most enduring myth. The sophisticated urban layout visible in the sonar imagery, the monumental pyramid structures, and the sheer scale of the site all seemed to align with Plato's descriptions of Atlantean grandeur. Social media buzzed with speculation. Documentaries were commissioned and books were written exploring the tantalizing possibility that myth had become reality. However, mainstream archaeologists approached the Atlantis connection with considerable caution. The name itself had become something of a third rail in academic circles, too often associated with pseudoscience and unfounded speculation to be taken seriously in rigorous research contexts. Dr. Ritald Venant and his colleagues were careful to distance their work from sensationalist claims, emphasizing the need for scientific methodology over mythological parallels. Yet even the most skeptical researchers couldn't entirely dismiss the symbolic power of the comparison. The geometric precision visible in the megasite imagery did suggest a level of architectural sophistication that seemed advanced for any known ancient civilization. The circular formations in particular bore a striking resemblance to Plato's description of Atlantis as a series of concentric rings separated by canals. Whether this represented genuine archaeological evidence or an extraordinary coincidence remained an open question. The Atlantis debate highlighted a fundamental tension in the scientific community's response to the megasite. While researchers were eager to avoid the stigma associated with mythological archaeology, they couldn't ignore the fact that the structures displayed characteristics that seemed to transcend the known capabilities of ancient civilizations. The discovery forced an uncomfortable reckoning with the possibility that human history might be far more complex and mysterious than previously imagined. That the deeper implications of the Atlantis connection weren't lost on thoughtful observers. If the megasite did represent evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization, it would suggest that human technological development hadn't followed the linear progression assumed by most historical models. Instead, it might point to cycles of rise and decline, with advanced societies emerging and vanishing long before the dawn of recorded history. Why the mystery remains unsolved? The year 2002 marked what should have been the beginning of a comprehensive investigation into the megasite. Plans were in motion for a follow-up expedition featuring manned submersibles capable of providing direct visual evidence of the structures. Dr. Sylvia Earle, the renowned oceanographer, expressed interest in the project, and funding seemed within reach. The scientific community held its breath, anticipating definitive answers to the questions that had been haunting researchers since the initial discovery. Instead, the project stalled, then died completely. The reasons were complex and multifaceted, reflecting the perfect storm of logistical, political, and financial challenges that often plague ambitious deep-sea research initiatives. Cuba's complex political relationship with much of the Western world created bureaucratic obstacles that proved nearly insurmountable. Research permits became tangled in diplomatic red tape, and potential international collaborations were hampered by economic sanctions and political tensions. The financial reality of deep-sea archaeology also played a crushing role in derailing follow-up investigations. Operating at depths of 750 meters requires specialized equipment that cost millions of dollars to deploy. Manned submersibles capable of detailed archaeological work are rare and expensive, with operational costs that can reach tens of thousands of dollars per dive. Private funding proved difficult to secure for a project with uncertain outcomes. and government funding agencies were reluctant to invest in research that straddled the line between